members of the chamber, and thank you so much, first of all, for having me here again and hosting this annual event and having the opportunity to share everything that's going on in the city with you. Tonight, I present to you my 5th State of the City address to the community. It is really wonderful to finally be together in person after a few challenging years of a virtual and hybrid environment. It seems that the challenges that we all face in our community and the world are never ending, yet there is so much good occurring all around us and within our community. As we continue to navigate the challenges post-pandemic, we've had starts and stops with opening up our facilities for visitors and customers and preparing our rental facilities for public use. I'm pleased to share that we are finally fully open to the public, and as you know by being here, the visitor center can be utilized by the community yet again. In the summer of 2022, we saw our community come alive again with the full return of Duvall Days, Sandblast, and a full lineup for the City of Duvall's Summer Stage Concert Series, and many other events throughout the Snoqualmie Valley that brought us together to celebrate. Big Rock Ballfields even hosted its first regional Little League tournament, bringing teams to the city from all over the region to compete at our fields. We are fortunate to have had a late start to the hot summer that made conditions perfect for enjoying all the outdoor activities that Duvall and the Snoqualmie Valley have to offer. We skated through most of the wildfire season without the burden of dangerous smoke until September with the Bolt Creek Fire in Skycomish, followed by the Loch Katrine Fire near the Tolt Reservoir. With these major fires on the western side of the Cascades and many brush fires nearby, we were lucky that fire crews managed and extinguished them. Nevertheless, it was a major wake-up call to all those living in and around our community, just as the major snowstorm of 2019 and the COVID-19 pandemic were before. The City of Duvall is exiting a tumultuous few years, but stronger than ever, with a clear focus on what we need to do to provide essential services, maintain our existing infrastructure while planning for our current and future needs, and the importance of having a team that is well-versed in public safety and emergency management. Some of what I share tonight will feel like Groundhog Day. Unfortunately, several key projects have not crossed the finish line due to circumstances beyond the administration's control, including significant staffing gaps. The good news is that thanks to the approval of new employees, much of the delayed work will get done this year and next. For the next 3 years, thanks to the support of our current city council members, our focus will be strengthening the spine of our city and rebuilding from the inside out. As the old flight adage goes, you need to put on your oxygen mask before helping others. This also rings true in municipal government. We can't help others if we don't have oxygen, and without it, we will die. Along those lines, anyone with a long-lasting back injury may remember your doctor or physical therapist stressing that to heal and diminish your physical pain, strengthening your stabilizer muscles on both sides of your spine is critical, as is a proper diet and adequate sleep for recovery. Since 2008, we have been operating without working enough on those stabilizers, and certainly not providing proper nutrition to heal and maintain our health. After several years of 2 steps forward and 1 step back, we're finally making the investments necessary to strengthen our spine to put our best foot forward to the community. As I shared during the last State of the City address, we are remodeling and repairing 2 key buildings that house our employees, thanks to direct funding from the state legislature: the main Public Works building and the Police Department portable building. The Police Department model is well underway and will modernize the facility so that it will be able to accommodate our public safety needs until new facilities are constructed. The Public Works building isn't far behind. In 2021, the city officially ran out of room for our existing employees and converted the only conference room in City Hall to offices. Most residents have not attended a city council meeting and are unaware the city does not even have a council chambers, a core part of every city's primary infrastructure. In fact, after working at city and office at City Hall full-time before the pandemic, I as mayor no longer even have a desk or a kiosk anywhere in the city to conduct business. We currently don't have space in our employee buildings for today's employees and are working to find solutions for the 6 new employees coming on board in the short term. Temporarily, this may require the city to stop renting out certain public buildings for community groups because that is where staff will be housed to work. When the Public Works remodel moves forward, more employees will be displaced. The bright side of this building remodel is that when it is done, it will be capable of housing more employees, but will still not meet our future needs. My vision for a future city facility includes having most staff under one roof, space for city council members to work and meet with constituents, a meeting room or meeting rooms for our local community groups, and a functional emergency operations center. A city hall should be a place to work, for the community to gather, and provide a safe space. And while the visitor center is adequately serving as our council chambers today, our hope would be to have council chambers in a new city hall so the visitor center can be returned fully to community events. The council approved a big step forward towards fixing this with the approval of funding to conduct a site selection and scoping of a new city facility. So while we are still at least a few years out and many community meetings away from full funding and breaking ground, for the first time since it was requested in the 2019-2020 budget, there is hope that we will indeed move forward with this critical rebuild that will serve our community for generations to come. The funding and construction of a new city hall will not come cheaply or easily. Since the first budget proposal for siting and scoping in 2018, land and building costs have skyrocketed. In addition, construction standards for government buildings have been approved, adding significant costs and extra planning to the process. Yet, having a functional, secure city hall is essential to government operations and strengthening the spine of our city government. It's also one more reason why I continue to focus on taking care of our existing infrastructure before funding the want to have large capital projects that expand our parks assets and add significant operations and maintenance costs without a dedicated funding source, while taking away from critical services such as community development and public safety. I have always believed that being a good steward of public money means making investments necessary for the continuity of government operations first and funding for the extras last. We are also continuing to compete and plan for funding to make necessary improvements to the 3rd Avenue corridor. Absent improvements on Northeast 124th and Woodinville Duvall Road, or magically shutting out pass-through traffic from Snohomish County, this corridor is a primary alternate route for Highway 203 traffic on Main Street and is crucial for our transportation and public safety in the long term. Many know that we have remained in a sewer moratorium for more than a year due to housing coming in faster than expected, necessitating earlier than planned upgrades of our wastewater treatment facility. However, these improvements are moving forward, and soon we will be able to accept and process permit applications for the businesses we know are trying hard to build and provide service to our community. Our region continues to be amid a housing availability and affordability crisis, with the need for 1 million units statewide over the next 20 years. Last year, we partnered with the Snoqualmie Valley communities to complete a housing needs assessment and will complete a local housing action plan in 2023. Unfortunately, while Duvall has seen record housing growth and permit applications, there are some members of the legislature that have been dedicated to implementing a one-size-fits-all approach to housing with the misguided thought that simply requiring cities to allow more density, accessory dwelling units, and subdividing lots to allow for 4 or more houses on each lot will solve the middle housing problem. Regrettably, that approach will not work in Duvall and will destroy the character of our community. At the same time, the growth that cities to the north of us are eager to take on will worsen our local transportation woes much faster than policy and projects can keep up with. We are hard at work this legislative session attempting to get common sense built into any legislation that passes to avoid the unintended consequences of removing the only viable tool that allows us to manage growth responsibly, zoning. One of the strongest foundations in our city is the good planning and policy decisions in our enterprise funds that have assured that as we grow, our sewer and water systems stay in compliance. Developers pay their fair share, and the portion of rates within our control remains steady, with predictable, gradual increases to account for the constantly changing economy. 2021 saw record revenue collections, and 2022 was no exception. The city of Duvall continued to see sales, real estate excise, and utility taxes increase. Thanks to increased sales tax revenue, the voter-approved transportation benefit district funding is helping us do even more than we originally planned. As is typical, much of the revenue increases were due to increases in population, new construction, and to some extent, inflation. Sales tax were up 4.6% over the previous year, with property tax revenues rising similarly. These two sources alone comprise over 1/2 of the city's annual general fund revenue and are primarily used to fund our police department, city hall operations, the finance and planning departments, and our parks maintenance and workers. While a 4.6% increase in sales tax revenue is great news, it is a far cry from the 37.4% we saw in 2020 and 2021. The long-term trend of increases continues to be driven by population growth, the stability and strength of our local economy, and delivery point sales tax, thinking of Amazon and all of those products you order online. In addition, as the years have gone by, our community support of our local businesses has continued to increase. Statewide and nationally, we are in uncertain financial times. It has been years since we have seen a true recession, and the economic indicators are all over the board on what to expect. The increased revenue we've received represents a trend for the past several years, much of which, again, can be tied to the population growth and strength of our local economy. Moreover, the recent state revenue forecast predicts revenue growth, barring political instability, natural disasters, or emergencies such as another pandemic. Employment rates continue to exceed expectations in our region, making it difficult to attract qualified candidates for some positions. The Consumer Price Index through June reached 10%, and while gradually slowing since, continues to be high and is impacting the cost of doing business. In particular, we have seen the construction costs rise significantly, erasing some of the financial gains we saw in revenues. So what does that mean for the city of Duvall and its taxpayers? Well, I remain committed to putting our tax dollars to work, funding our city's core government functions, maintaining our infrastructure and buildings, and planning for the future. We continue to have a significant amount of deferred maintenance on our city buildings, but have finally begun to make a dent in our most critical spaces. In addition, the long-awaited government facilities analysis is nearing completion, with millions of dollars of repairs and improvements necessary simply to ensure our buildings comply with current building code and repairs are made. Funding our statutory obligations continues to come first. After years of discussion, the current council has been supportive of gradually right-sizing our workforce to provide an adequate level of service to our community. We know that as we reach our residential building capacity, the revenue we see from new construction will greatly diminish, potentially causing a significant revenue shortfall for routine maintenance and staffing. To prepare and plan for this future, we continue to be committed to conducting both a workload analysis and developing a municipal financial plan. The workload analysis will allow us to see where our gaps are, where we should be today, and what we will need in the future. Notwithstanding unfunded state mandates, this work will be critical to further stabilization of our city's staffing levels. The municipal financial plan will take the workload analysis, government facilities analysis, and capital facilities plans for streets, water, sewer, and parks, and make recommendations for how to fund the core functions of government over the long term, as well as build resiliency into our operations and management. Ideally, this work will also identify what is needed to manage emerging threats, unfunded state mandates, natural and man-made disasters, and economic downturns without a loss of service levels to our residents and businesses. It will also mean that the City Council will be charged with making difficult decisions on funding and further revenue sources. The current tax structure in Washington requires cities to live within our means, yet has in place significant barriers for revenues to keep pace with the increased cost of doing business. Over the past several years, we have been quite cautious about spending and committed to fully funding the contingency or rainy day fund and reserves. As a result, in areas such as our wastewater treatment division, we have a robust financial strategy that, absent significant policy changes by the City Council or a major shift in residential growth requirements, all but guarantees that rate increases remain stable and all maintenance and future expansion of the system will not require significant increases like those that we experienced in the early 2000s. Even with the fiscal conservative actions of fully funding our savings and appropriately funding and planning for the future of critical public health infrastructure, we continue to have significant gaps in our workforce. In the middle of 2022, we completed the city's first ever citywide salary survey, which resulted in right-sizing the compensation of all our positions and is aiding in the retention and recruitment of our most valuable asset, our employees. During the mid-biennium budget adjustments in the fall of 2021, the council authorized 3.5 new employees, which brought our staffing levels almost back to those of 2008. As a result, our Public Works Department saw some relief and has been able to begin to catch up on critical work that was not getting done due to understaffing. Thanks to the American Recovery Plan Act, or ARPA, this year we are adding 4 limited term positions for a period of 2 years with the goal to fund the positions during the next biennium permanently. These include another senior planner, an emergency management coordinator, communications manager, and community events coordinator. We know that with the lack of a trained communications professional, information flowing to the public has been sparse lately. One of the city's primary responsibilities is communicating with the public, sharing information, responding to our community concerns, and publishing critical emergency information. The communications manager is one of several I have believed we needed for more than 10 years. While we did have some excellent part-time communications work in-house for a few years, we continued to need more. Now is the time. We are also well aware internally that the past 6 years have brought increasing numbers of challenging public safety issues, dangerous weather events, a global pandemic that is still impacting life 3 years later, and the most recent emerging threat, wildland-urban interface fires. The city has never had a full-time emergency manager and was fortunate for several years to have a staff member who took on duties outside their role to train and become a well-respected emergency management professional. However, that work didn't come without both successes and consequences, including major projects being put on hold for sometimes extended periods of time to allow for the urgent health and safety needs of our staff and community to be taken care of. This is another position that is critical to keeping our community safe through planning, drills, training, and community outreach. Like the communications manager, the full-time emergency management coordinator is an essential function I've been working to have approved for over 10 years. At a recent Sound Cities Association meeting, the Washington State Lands Commissioner said that the Bolt Creek fire should be a wake-up call to Western Washington cities. I'll say she was not nice about it. Not only are we immune from the hazards of wildfire smoke from Eastern Washington, but we are also at high risk of a wildland-urban interface fire right here in our community. The city of Duvall comprises a combination of wildland-urban interface, intermix areas, which means at least one side of the designated area where structures abut or are bordered by wildlands. Unfortunately, these maps published in the King County Wildfire Strategy Report don't consider wildfire risk, critical infrastructure, or evacuation challenges. Duvall's current comprehensive and emergency management plan is outdated due to understaffing and lack of having a full-time emergency manager. In practical terms, if a federally declared disaster occurs before the plan is updated, we may not be able to eligible to receive funds to reimburse those local taxpayer costs to manage the event. Earthquakes, snowstorms, windstorms, ice storms, and floodings are events that the federal government has historically reimbursed the city for, and a major budget stabilizer to ensure that we manage these events correctly. The state legislature is on the cusp of expanding Washington's wildfire preparedness efforts. With that will come new requirements for planning that go well beyond our existing plan, which currently accounts for the events mentioned above and since 2020 pandemics. This extra and critically necessary planning will take time, money, partnerships, and significant community outreach. Having this position as a full-time role will ensure our current plan is updated to comply, allow us to explain our plan to account for emerging threats and the new requirements, as well as be responsible for carrying out the training of all city staff and city council members on their roles during emergencies, and developing practice drills to make sure that when an emergency does occur, we're prepared to act. In addition, this position will ensure the safety of our employees through required workplace standards. The third position is in the restoration and expansion of the community events manager role. We've been without a dedicated employee for 7 years to manage the Duvall Cultural Commission and Summer Stage and assist with other community events. Unfortunately, this has led to a piecemeal approach that has been inefficient and resulted in a near elimination of activities held by the Duvall Cultural Commission, as well as a loss of talented members of the commission. We have been very fortunate to have experienced contracted support to put on our annual Summer Stage series, but this has been unsustainable and leaves a considerable gap in arts and cultural support from the city. We know from consistent community feedback that the arts and culture are essential to those who live and recreate in Duvall, and are committed to rebuilding the DCC, our city events, and relationships with our partners in the arts and culture in Snoqualmie Valley. The community event manager will also assist with the deployment of town halls, engaging our local nonprofits and businesses, and building a strong connection between the city and the community. We have also added a few positions that are permanent employees that are funded with ongoing resources. These positions include a new senior planner, 2 public works maintenance workers, and a wastewater operator. In the community development department, adding a planning manager will allow the city to update our parks, trails, and open space plan from 2009. Initially, this update was scheduled for 2018. However, understaffing and emerging issues stopped that process. This has resulted in the city becoming ineligible for certain types of grant funding, which we rely on to reduce the burden on taxpayers when improving our parks. On the surface, some may think that the city is adding positions just because. That couldn't be further from the truth. Despite several new additions over the past few years, we still don't have enough workers on staff to carry out the essential work of the city, let alone have the capacity to manage unexpected work and council-driven priorities. We've been really lucky that the wheels haven't fallen off yet. Funding appropriate staffing levels are a necessary rebuilding tool that will go a long way to stabilizing the spine of city operations. As I discuss nearly every year, our staffing levels have not kept up with increase in population, nor the increase of infrastructure our community expects us to maintain, such as new parks, new street miles, sewer and water lines, and building maintenance. We must be transparent and honest about where we have been, where we are today, and where we need to go to maintain and grow our community in the future. So let's put this in perspective. In 2008, the city's population was 5,925 with 52 full-time employees. In 2022, we came very close to restoring the staffing levels of 2008 with a total of 51.7 FTEs budgeted. Over the past 15 years, our population has increased by more than 30% to 8,650 residents, with the estimate for 2024 at 9,208 residents, nearly overall 36% increase. With the new positions included in the 23 and 2024 biennial budget, we will exceed the 2008 staffing levels with with 59.7 employees, and which includes the short-term ARPA-funded positions. This means that in 2008, the city had a per capita ratio of 1 employee for every 114 residents. Today, we have 1 employee per 144 residents. And without even more new staff positions, we will have 1 employee per 154 residents in 2024. During the same time, even with significant technological advances making some work more efficient, statutory requirements, unfunded mandates, and community expectations have increased. Natural disasters are becoming more frequent, and the use of internet and social media has significantly increased the responsibility and the workload of local governments across the board. In today's world, it can be challenging to predict the future, yet some things will not change. Operating and managing a city is no small task, and each year the responsibilities grow due to population increases, new rules and regulations, state mandates, and community expectations. However, with most city council positions turning over in the past years and more experienced voices at the table, we are moving the needle today, which was almost wholly stalled for nearly 5 years. Duvall is a full-service city that provides road, sidewalk, and bike lane infrastructure, functioning sewer and water systems, stormwater facilities, events, public safety, and parks. Yet these aren't the only important functions of city government. We could not operate without our community development department, clerk's office, or finance department. And of great importance, and we'll get to this a little bit later, while the mayor of the city is legally responsible for all activity in the city, it's still considered a part-time job with a poverty wage and lack of healthcare benefits. As long as the city has been incorporated, the mayor's role has often been perceived as volunteer work. However, at the core of much of public service has a real element of volunteerism, with government staff often getting paid significantly less than their private sector counterparts. For more than 4 years, I was fortunate to dedicate 40 to 60 hours per week to the city's daily operations without the benefit of a qualified permanent city administrator. My predecessors didn't have the luxury and privilege of being able to dedicate full-time hours to this work, and our most recent mayor spent 10 of 12 years without this vital position in place. It's funny to think that Duvall didn't hire its first city administrator until 2014, and it's sad to think how much farther ahead we would be as a city if we had been staffed appropriately in numbers and expertise a couple of decades ago. Don't get me wrong, many great things were achieved over the years, yet the ongoing work to stabilize the spine of our city simply could not get done. Now, after a blip, we have a full-time city administrator who has hit the ground running, developing policy, providing a stable presence in City Hall. Yes, she does have an office for now. Supporting staff, council, and the mayor. She is a consummate professional with a get-it-done attitude who in just a few short months is completing tasks we've been trying to get across the finish line for years. When I talk about stabilizing the spine of our city, Cynthia's innate leadership skills are a core component that will help us achieve our long-term goals. During the spring of 2022, the time had come for me to take on full-time work outside of the city while continuing to carry out my role as your mayor. It took several more months to bring in a new city administrator on board, and truthfully, my personal connection and response to the community had to take a backseat to the daily internal work of the city. In contrast, we worked diligently to find the right fit for the position. With our city administrator assisting with the day-to-day operations, we are stabilizing the spine of our operations and rebuilding the city from the inside out. Whether it's moving forward with capital facilities projects, recruiting and hiring new employees, retaining long-term team members, or working with council, I'm confident in her skills and ability to see this administration's goals come to fruition. Now, back to elected officials and pay, and this really gets to a challenge in local government and volunteerism in general. The city's elected officials play a huge role in our operations and our regional engagement. A crucial role that has grown significantly over the past couple of decades is city council members need to be involved at the county, state, and federal levels. In the coming months, we're also going to be recruiting for many folks to participate on county boards, commissions, and citizen advisory committees to provide city administration community insight that it needs to make intelligent decisions. There are dozens of boards and committees that make policy decisions that impact our community and the city's ability to maintain and improve our quality of life. At this point, our council members get $500 a month and have to miss work to go to any of those regional meetings where decisions are being made that impact what we can do as a city in serving our community. Unfortunately, despite the hundreds of well-meaning elected officials that we have the honor of working with each and every day, those that don't live in our community often don't know what we need is different from other communities to see our mutual goals achieved. There are significant barriers for people that want to serve in our city in elected or appointed office, and those barriers are increasing. As I mentioned before, elected officials and appointed officials often have to take time off work that doesn't get reimbursed from the city to do important regional, statewide, and federal work. For people currently working, this can be a significant barrier when someone is considering giving their time to our community. As business owners, I think you all feel that. Even more so is for those with school-age children who try to find a work-life balance but still want to give back. I believe that these are key factors in the shrinking number of individuals that are stepping up to serve as elected officials or volunteer members of boards and commissions. The last 2 council appointments received only 1 applicant each, even after extending the application deadline, where historically there has been a minimum of 3 applicants. This is a systemic problem throughout the state. The lack of diversity and community representation on many city councils is a leading indicator of a system that doesn't afford equitable access. Strengthening our community and city demands changes. I'm working through my role with the Association of Washington Cities to bring this issue to light and begin to study and facilitate change. Moving forward, in March of 2022, I shared with the community many of the challenges we are facing. While we still face many of those long-term challenges, it's incredible how much progress we've made in seemingly one concise year. Last year, the police department, like most, struggled to find qualified candidates to fill vacant positions. Today, I have the distinct honor of swearing in our 2 newest officers, which now completes our police department and is fully staffed for the first time in 2 years. And more than that, we have a waiting list of people who want to come and work for the city of Duvall as law enforcement officers. This is a huge testament to the continuously improving culture of the Duvall Police Department and the leadership under Chief Michael DeBach and Lieutenant Steve Sabrin. Last year, the Community Development Department was drowning in state-mandated work without enough employees to keep up. Today, they've added a total of 3 positions that will enable the department to meet deadlines and, importantly, work on critical policies such as our comprehensive plan update, sign code update, and parks, trails, and open space plan update. The wastewater treatment plant was understaffed for years, putting operations at risk if the primary operators could not report to work. With the addition of a new operator this year, there will be more backup to plan for and prepare for the unforeseen. In Public Works, we've added an assistant engineer and a couple of maintenance positions to help us catch up on incomplete projects and move forward with new ones, such as City Hall. In Finance, we have added staff to support utility billing and more, launched the OpenGov budgeting system, provided increased transparency in our city's budget, and moved forward with a policy that helps ensure a more firm financial footing. In the clerk's office, we're developing a deputy clerk position so that we can ensure continuity of operations and backup support, filling a crucial gap in operations redundancy. In IT, we have moved on from partnering with the Snoqualmie Valley City and are looking to contract with a vendor to increase our cyber resiliency and security, as well as ensure our systems are prepared to weather the unplanned and unexpected. So the new normal. Last year at this time I spoke about the new normal. We didn't know what a post-COVID world would really look like, and now with vaccinations, treatments, and mutations, we're living with the virus just as we live with the flu. It's also now been a year since the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and the world has been pounded with natural disasters. A year later, we still don't know what the new normal is or will be around us. However, the state of the city is stronger than it ever has been. Our community is resilient, supportive, and kind. Our employees are second to none and incredibly committed to serving our community and making it the best it can be. One thing I'm certain of, if the new normal of the city of Duvall sticks and we successfully stabilize our spine and rebuild from within, nothing can stop us from improving our community and serving our residents in the way that they deserve. Together, we will make it through any challenge we face and come out better than ever. Thank you.